We have a real problem with this storm, and the aftermath of the storm is the authorities.
It happened just 1 minute ago. A discovery so unbelievable it's sending seismic shock waves through the entire mountain men community. Eustace Conway, the titan who forged a life from pure self-reliance and nature, is once again center stage. But this time, it's not for his legendary wilderness expertise. Officials inspecting his Turtle Island preserve stumbled upon a secret inside his old barn that has everyone asking the same terrifying question. What unholy truth did Eustace bury all these years? Witnesses describe a scene ripped straight from a mystery novel, hidden chambers, meticulously sealed crates, and one shocking artifact that instantly forced authorities to call for immediate, armed backup. Stay tuned, because what's been unearthed from that forgotten barn floor could utterly rewrite everything we believed we knew about the legendary mountain man. Like, subscribe, and activate those notifications right now, because this story is far more than an investigation. It's a countdown. For decades, Eustace Conway's barn stood like a silent sentinel on the periphery of his Turtle Island preserve, appearing to be nothing more than a simple structure of hand-hewn logs. It was another rustic element of his self-sustained paradise, a space where the mountain man stored simple tools and memories of a life lived deliberately off the grid. But those who had the rare privilege of coming close to Conway always sensed a profound, unnerving energy radiating from it. This barn wasn't mere storage. It was sacred ground. A space Eustace defended with the severity of a fortress, issuing absolute warnings to visitors never to enter without his explicit permission. That intense secrecy made the ensuing events all the more jarring. According to preliminary reports, this life-altering discovery began with something mundane: a simple post-storm safety inspection. County officials were dispatched to ensure the old buildings remained structurally sound. When they reached the barn, they found it secured by heavy, brutal iron latches, far exceeding what would ever be needed for simple tools. Following multiple unanswered attempts to contact Eustace, the team, under the supervision of local law enforcement, proceeded to force entry. The second they stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The familiar smell of aged pine and machine oil was laced with something else: a cold, metallic tang, faintly chemical and unnervingly sterile. Stacked along the walls were crates, each one neatly labeled, yet all covered in years of dust and sealed shut with old wax. But the true secret only revealed itself when one of the inspectors accidentally nudged a conspicuously loose floorboard. Beneath the plank was a narrow, meticulously crafted wooden hatch, perfectly camouflaged. When finally pried open, it exposed a crude staircase, disappearing into the absolute darkness below. What their flashlights illuminated next sent a profound chill down their spines. Rows upon rows of shelves lined with dusty, ominous glass jars, rusted surgical instruments, and thick, cryptic books wrapped tightly in animal hide. Someone recently had been diligently working down there, meticulously documenting a secret intentionally hidden from the light. The team instantly radioed local law enforcement, their voices tight with shock. One first responder reportedly said, "It didn't feel like we were in a barn anymore. It felt like stepping into someone's secret world." Authorities immediately secured the perimeter. It was at this critical moment that Eustace finally arrived. Witnesses claim he appeared neither shocked nor afraid, but possessed only a profound, quiet disappointment. He reportedly muttered under his breath, "They weren't supposed to find this yet." For the moment, officials are categorically refusing to comment on the nature of what was retrieved, but trusted insiders suggest it is fundamentally unlike anything they have ever linked to Eustace Conway before. This chilling new layer of mystery hints at an existence that is not only far more complex, but perhaps dangerously complex. When investigators descended into the darkness, They expected forgotten farming tools. Instead, what awaited them looked unnervingly like a private forbidden archive, an underground vault, meticulously arranged and expertly preserved. The air was thick with dust and the faint scent of formaldehyde. Rows of shelves dominated the small chamber, each one holding dozens of thick glass jars. Inside were specimens no one could easily classify or explain: preserved animal organs, feathers, unidentified bones, and strange, glowing botanical specimens. Lying alongside them were numerous hand-bound journals, sealed in old wax, each volume labeled with cryptic, disturbing phrases like cycle study, reversion data, and the chilling Project Living Legacy. Investigators quickly concluded that this looked less like the work of a skilled woodsman and more like that of an obsessive field scientist, someone consumed by cataloging every fragment of the natural world. On a large wooden workbench sat a collection of tools that defied logic: sterile scalpels, high-powered magnifying glasses, syringes, and custom, handmade microscopes built from salvaged glass. Some instruments were decades old, others looked shockingly new. Whoever had been working here had been doing so very, very recently. Even more unsettling were the large crates lined against the back wall. Some bore faded U.S. Forestry Service markings. Others were stenciled with serial numbers that began with the mysterious prefixes Fed and Bio, strongly suggesting they once belonged to some kind of highly classified government project. One particular crate contained multiple reels of film, each spool labeled with handwritten notes in Eustace's penmanship. One label simply read, Cycle 19, Observations of Conscious Adaptation. Authorities have refused to disclose the content of the tapes, but an anonymous insider claimed that what they witnessed should not exist. The journals, according to early forensic analysis, contained intricate sketches of human anatomy interwoven with detailed diagrams of animal nervous systems, suggesting a deep study into the biological parallels between man and beast. There were pages describing horrifying experiments in endurance, notes on precisely how the body adapts to extreme starvation and isolation. Some entries were signed simply EC, others bore no signature at all. To push the unease to an unbearable level, one dark corner contained an old chest filled with various bones. Most were animal, but a chilling few were undeniably human. When initially questioned about the human remains, Eustace remained completely silent. Witnesses claim he stood at the top of the stairs, quietly observing the investigators with an expression of calm, defiant detachment, muttering only a single sentence before turning and walking away. They're not ready to see what I've seen. Whatever the ultimate truth, one thing is now terrifyingly certain. The barn was never a storage place at all. It was a high-security vault, and the secrets it held might be the single most shocking revelation of Eustace's entire life. By the following morning, Turtle Island Preserve looked less like a peaceful homestead and more like a heavily secured government investigation site. Yellow tape surrounded the ominous barn, and police vehicles lined the dusty road. Eustace Conway's sanctuary was crawling with strangers, people who fundamentally did not understand his world. Inside the barn, forensic investigators meticulously cataloged every item, sealing each as official evidence. The atmosphere was palpable with tension. What truly baffled the agents wasn't simply what they found, it was the question of why it was there. What was Eustace, a man who dedicated his life to simplicity, doing with objects that clearly looked like the sinister remnants of secret research? When Eustace finally stepped forward to address the growing crowd, the gathering went dead silent. Calm, unshaken, and stoic, he did not deny ownership. Everything in that barn, he stated clearly, was put there with intention. The earth hides truths we refuse to see. I only preserved them. That chilling statement instantly raised far more questions than it answered. Some aggressive reporters pressed him about the crates marked with the classified government codes, but Eustace flatly refused to elaborate. "Those markings," he said, "don't belong to me. They belong to history." Then, without another syllable, he turned and walked away. In the hours that followed, several high-level federal agencies joined the case, including specialized environmental and historical preservation officials. Preliminary findings strongly suggested that some of the artifacts actually predated Eustace's ownership of the property. Could he have uncovered something significant while expanding his preserve and intentionally chosen to conceal it? His loyal supporters insisted he was merely safeguarding crucial, sensitive discoveries the modern world would inevitably exploit. But skeptics argued that his behavior clearly showed signs of extreme secrecy, bordering on paranoia. By midday, the rumors went viral. Wild claims of rogue biological experiments, undiscovered ancient remains, and classified government relics were being reported as fact, allegedly buried deep beneath Turtle Island. The evidence recovered from Eustace Conway's barn was now sealed and locked away in federal custody. The man once celebrated for his harmony with nature now stood squarely at the eye of a terrifying mystery. Yet, through all the chaos, Eustace showed no trace of fear, only quiet conviction. To him, this was never a discovery. It was a revelation long overdue. To understand the shocking discovery beneath Eustace Conway's barn, investigators were forced to pore over his past, hoping to uncover what could drive a man devoted to simplicity to conceal what looked like a full-scale secret laboratory. Eustace grew up in a strict academic household where the pursuit of esoteric knowledge was valued above all else. From an early age, he displayed an unusual, unsettling fascination with biology and the core of the human condition. He studied environmental studies and anthropology at Appalachian State University. Professors recalled him as brilliant, yet profoundly unconventional. He once wrote that civilization is the experiment and nature is the control. After graduation, he immediately embarked on a series of extreme, almost inhuman wilderness expeditions, living alone in caves and deep forests, relentlessly testing his endurance against the elements. Friends confirmed he kept detailed, meticulous journals about precisely how the human body and mind adapt under extreme pressure, notes eerily similar to those found in the secret barn vault. One companion recalled Eustace spending an entire winter utterly isolated in the Blue Ridge Mountains with only a knife, declaring it was solely for research. When the investigation team uncovered the barn journals labeled cycle study and reversion data, it became horrifyingly clear that his extreme experiments hadn't simply ended decades ago. They had evolved. The diagrams written in his own hand compared modern human anatomy with primitive survival adaptations, strongly suggesting he was studying how to forcibly revert humanity to a more primal state. Some have even theorized he wasn't merely observing nature, he was actively attempting to merge with it. When investigators returned to Eustace Conway's barn for a second forensic sweep, one highly observant officer noticed a specific wall panel that didn't quite match the rest. The wood grain ran opposite the other panels, and when lightly tapped, it produced a distinct, undeniable hollow echo. They immediately pried it open, and what they found inside instantly silenced the entire room. Hidden behind the panel was a sealed, small chamber. Inside, lying on a rough wooden table under a tattered canvas sheet, was a skeletal figure. At a terrifying first glance, it appeared human, but as forensic experts immediately discovered, it was profoundly not. The proportions were all wrong. The arms were unnaturally longer, the fingers impossibly thin, and the jawline was far narrower than any known human specimen. Even the bone density did not match standard human anatomy. The skeleton had been treated with an unknown preservation compound, leaving the bones with a faint metallic sheen. Next to the remains sat an open journal, once again written in Eustace's handwriting. The haunting entry read, "Found at creek bed near the ridge. Movement before stillness, structure beyond human pattern." The date, October 2020. The implications were simply staggering. Was Eustace documenting a stunning discovery, or was he confessing to something he had tragically created himself? The skeletal structure bore a resemblance to some of his anatomical sketches, labeled adaptive reversion model. When aggressively questioned again, he offered no direct answers. He reportedly told one officer, "It's not what you think. It's not death. It's transition." Authorities immediately seized the remains and transferred them to a highly secure facility for specialized study. The sudden involvement of the FBI only served to furiously fuel rumors that what lay beneath Eustace's barn wasn't from this century or this species. News of the skeleton spread faster than any of the concerned officials could possibly contain it. Social media was flooded with rampant speculation, and people were instantly taking sides. Die-hard supporters of Eustace rallied to his defense, calling him a deeply misunderstood visionary. They argued that the remains were either a teaching model or part of an old anthropological study that Eustace had preserved. But hardened skeptics and investigators were absolutely not convinced. To them, too many sinister details simply did not add up. The strange coded journals, the classified government markings, and the undeniable fact that the bones had never been registered or officially reported. Through all the noise, Eustace remained profoundly silent, refusing all interview requests. When he finally did respond, it was through a handwritten note nailed with a single iron nail to the center of the barn door. It simply read, "Nature is older than truth. What we fear, we bury. What we bury, the earth remembers." Those cryptic, haunting words only deepened the core mystery. Meanwhile, federal vehicles continued to arrive at Turtle Island Preserve, systematically removing heavy crates under armed guard. Officials maintained absolute secrecy. As investigators continued their methodical excavation, what began as a simple dig quickly warped into something monumental. Beneath the original foundation, specialized teams uncovered a complex series of interconnected tunnels, narrow, hand-carved passages leading deeper into the earth. The walls were lined with supporting timber, suggesting years of work underground. One specific tunnel extended nearly 200 feet before dramatically opening into a larger chamber. Inside were more artifacts: rusted metal cages, glass jars filled with murky liquid, and a massive wooden table covered in old maps and intricate diagrams. The maps traced deep into the Appalachian Range, marking numerous spots labeled R1 through R7, corresponding to remote wilderness areas infamous for strange local legends. One of the documents recovered in the tunnel bore an official yet faded stamp, Department of Interior, 1987. Yet when contacted, the department flatly denied any record of such a file. When Eustace was confronted with the grim tunnel photos, he remained utterly calm. "Nature keeps records, too," he reportedly told an astonished officer. "You just have to dig deep enough to find them." The tunnels were a constructed network, methodically planned, its design perfectly echoing the anatomical sketches found in Eustace's journals. Even more unsettling were the faint, deliberate carvings etched into the tunnel walls, symbols resembling constellations, but arranged in patterns never seen in modern star maps. The search was eventually halted after reports of unstable ground, but not before a final terrifying discovery was made. A second, expertly hidden entrance, nearly half a mile away, camouflaged beneath fallen trees. Weeks passed, and the intense investigation reached an explosive boiling point. Insiders began leaking crucial fragments of what had been discovered. Among the most sensitive artifacts was a final, sealed, leather-bound journal. written entirely in Eustace's hand. The very first page bore a single, haunting sentence. If they find this, the cycle is already repeating. The following entries were filled with complex calculations, drawings of skeletal structures, and notes describing a kind of forced biological harmony between the human form and environment. But what truly shocked the investigators was a final section written in stark, red ink, a confession of sorts. Eustace detailed how decades earlier he had unearthed remains near Turtle Island's riverbank that did not belong to any known species. He claimed the bones were part of a lineage that completely predated humanity, something neither beast nor man, but the crucial balance in between. He wrote that he kept the original discovery hidden only to prevent what he called institutional erasure. The final, chilling entry, dated just a few months before the investigation began, read, "They're waking again beneath the ridge. The land remembers its makers." After writing that, Eustace simply vanished. He left Turtle Island without a single warning. His truck was abandoned near the forest edge. To this very day, his whereabouts remain utterly unknown. Authorities closed the tunnels and seized the entire property, citing extreme biological hazards. Whatever the elusive truth, one thing is absolutely certain. What they found hidden in Eustace Conway's barn will forever change the final story of America's last mountain man, and perhaps fundamentally, the story of mankind itself.